means total pace potential. Now we have a readout called early pace potential, which is far more predictive of an early horse or a horse that might go to wire than just early pace. We have late pace potential. And you take the two together and you get total pace potential. This creates balance. So total pace potential is something you should be looking at very strongly. Then we have the incremental pace graph. Now, a lot of you who had synergetic matchup and thoromation remember that we had a graph similar to this, only instead of little pointing marks, we had horses. We took the horses off because so many people could not get their printer to print out the horses, or they had to have a special printer, or they had some problem with it. So we don't have the horses in here. And we have one factor that was not present in former programs. Former programs gave you the first, second, and third fraction, slightly weighted, or the first fraction, the second call, and the third fraction, weighted according to early and or sustained. Well, that didn't always work out too well. It worked out well enough so that it was an advance of its time, but not as good as what we have now. Third fraction plus total pace, which is a formula that takes the third fraction and adds the total pace to it, so that the third fraction, the third panel you see here, actually represents pretty much how the race is supposed to run. And in this case, you get both the fractional and the total pace result. Now, look at the chart below that, which is our pace matchup graph. The pace matchup graph uses the first call, the second call, and the final time. So you'll see a little distinction, a little difference. Look at secret, for instance. In the second fraction, the incremental pace graph, secret is second. He runs the second best second fraction. But look down below, on the other graph, his second call, he's seventh. So he made a tremendous move. See, both of these graphs are very telling. Don't just go one or the other, or don't wonder, for goodness sake, wonder why one's different from the other. The headings are different. First fraction, second fraction, third fraction, combined with total pace. The other one says first call, second call, and final time. So learn that distinction. One tells you that this horse Secret made a tremendous move from seventh to second in the second fraction, and his total comes out, he's second best. The first best is Fit. Now, Fit, I guess, is still running. But take a look on the next page, page 11, what happened to Secret. Because of that big second fraction move, Secret wins and pays $16.80. Lady, who's the number one horse on page 10, on both the incremental pace graph and the pace matchup graph, Lady is number one. Lady places and pays $21.20. So these graphs and the prime corollaries tell us quite a bit. The prime corollaries, when we got to the ranking, said Lady was second, Secret was tied for second, and Fit was number one. But Fit, if you look over to the right, we'll see where it says LS and rank, Fit is number one. Look over to factor X, the entropy, TS, total speed, and the total pace potential. The horse ranks fourth in all three of those. So don't stop. Don't stop just looking at the line score and the rank on the primary corollaries. Now, same race, same horses, supplemental or supplementary, call it anything you want, secondary. But the new added corollaries from synthesis. Let's take a look at what they produce. Fit, ranked number one, still looks pretty good until we get to the ranking on the supplemental corollaries. He goes from first to fourth. Lady is one. So follow fifth. The horse that was number one in the primary corollaries, the secondary corollaries, the horse goes down to fourth. Why? Because he didn't do as well on those prime supplemental corollaries, which are really give you, when they two come together, they really can get you some tremendous long shots, so don't overlook that. Our winner, Secret, on the supplemental corollaries, on fractals, which is a very, very important readout. He's fourth early, but he's first in late and normal. Normal means how they run the entire race without any bias. He's a late horse, beaten at the second call by 8 lengths, but he's number one in those vital readouts. And he's number one in entropy. Now, a lot of people say, I don't understand entropy and I don't understand fractals. Folks, I'm only talking to one of you now, folk. You don't have to understand entropy or fractals. You don't have to understand the formula that made them. Just understand their meaning. Entropy, based on the second law of thermodynamics in physics, entropy means energy no longer available. Now, what does energy no longer available mean in horse racing? It translates to deceleration. For years and years, you've read books about velocity, speed. Nobody ever mentioned deceleration. Well, I say nobody. A lot of people in my era have mentioned it because we introduced it to racing. See, the old physics formula was that for every unit of thrust or acceleration, there was an equal unit of deceleration. In other words, they balanced out, so deceleration meant nothing. Now, that was based on infinity. We took the formula and found out that in the specific distances at which races are run, deceleration and acceleration, velocity, were not compensatory. They were not equal. There were vast chasms between acceleration and deceleration. And the problem with horses that run too fast too early is they decelerate too swiftly, and that's why they don't hang around, despite the fact that your great experts will say that horse is going to go out and take the lead and never look back. Not if the entropy factor, the energy no longer available, dictates otherwise. So entropy is very important to you. So that's all it means. Don't try to, worry about how to spell it or how to pronounce it. That's what it is. I have a lot of people call it entropy, which is fine. I don't care what they call it. Just understand what it is. Now, as for fractals, I suppose this deserves an explanation. Fractals are minute, infinitesimal aspects of any unit of measurement, in our case fractions. Some people get the idea, in talking about pace, which I prefer the term incremental velocity, some people get the idea that the race runs this fraction, then it stops. That's a race. Then it starts up again and runs a second fraction, and then it stops, and that's a race. And then it runs a third fraction, and it stops, and that's the end of the race. In other words, they compartmentalize the three fractions without paying any attention or without acknowledging that they overlap. Now take this picture. My fingers are pressed firmly together, of the ones that I can get together. They're firmly together. That is the concept that some people have of pace, that it ends here and starts up again over here. But the truth is that they fold together. They come together, and each one has a significant influence on the other. The first can have an influence not only on the second, but on the third. And that's what fractals measures. Don't ask me the formula. I got it out of a book by a chaos physicist